Good morning! Welcome to the 9th annual and first ever virtual Girl Up Leadership Summit. I'm Mofi and my pronouns are she, her.
And I'm Salome, and you can call me Salo. My pronouns are she, her. We are your MCs. For the next 2 days, we will be your morning plenary MCs, and we will be here to guide you through this year's Leadership Summit.
One note of housekeeping. You should see an option for the summit to be interpreted in Spanish, Portuguese, and Mandarin Chinese. If you need captions in the other languages, there is a link to access those from the main stage agenda page. We know things are a bit different this year, but this conversation is more important than ever. We need to talk.
We are here to unite the global conversation for gender equality. Because if you take care of your corner of the world and I take care of mine, we know we can advance the movement for gender equality. We are all in this together and we all have a role to play.
As a Girl Up Club leader in the United Kingdom,
and as a club leader in Colombia,
we know that change does not just happen. We must set goals. So, let's start the summit by setting some goals. First, what will make this a life-changing experience for you is you. So to start, we'd like everyone to close their eyes. Come on, don't be shy.
Now, with your eyes closed, think of one goal you want to achieve over the next 2 days that you think will make you a better advocate for gender equality.
My goal is to research at least one topic discussed by one of our speakers.
And my goal is to meet new people in the Inspire sessions, workshops, and during the Day of Action, so that I can make new friends and learn about their cultures.
Your goal, like Salo's, could be to make new friends, to expand your knowledge on social justice issues, or write down 3 pieces of advice from the phenomenal speakers you'll hear from, to reference when you are feeling discouraged.
We all get this, especially over the past few months as the world faces a global pandemic. And as we confront the ways anti-Blackness and white supremacy impacts our communities and governments, as a result of centuries of racial injustice against Black, Indigenous, and communities of color.
As the world rises, we must too. We must continue to follow the leadership of the Black community. And we know that justice begins within our own hearts and homes. We want more justice so there will be more peace.
To me, that is what Girl Up is about. It is about coming together as a global community to work together and support one another in our movement to achieve true equality.
Please, join us in a moment of silence for the lives of the stories of those known and unknown, who have passed away as the result of systemic oppression, and in recognition of the centuries of freedom fighters who laid the work for this moment.
And in recognition of those lives lost due to COVID-19. Thank you. I really hope you understand that it's really important that we use our platforms to speak out against social issues and that we're informed on the current events. Anyways, I could not be more excited to be here today at Girl Up's largest and first virtual summit with almost 30,000 people registered, attendees from over 162 countries. This is truly a global conversation. We know that each one of you has a passionate reason for being here with us today. That is why throughout today, tomorrow, and Wednesday for our Day of Action, we are going to be focused on learning from each other and supporting one another in sharing our own powerful stories.
In order to help every attendee achieve the goal they set, it is so important that we are respectful of one another, active listeners, and intentional with our words.
Before we jump in, it's time for some quick boundary setting. Girl Up has a zero tolerance policy on bullying and discrimination. If something happens that makes you feel uncomfortable, please talk to a Girl Up staff member at the help desk in the virtual lobby or in the chat lounge. Now for some quick housekeeping. You should have already received an email from Girl Up asking you to take a poll. Make sure you complete that before tomorrow. In the main stage agenda, you'll also find our summit program complete with speakers and descriptions to choose which workshops you'd like to attend. And we can assure you, you can't go wrong because every single workshop is amazing.
Definitely. Throughout the summit, head to the leaderboard area to see how you can participate in a friendly competition with your fellow attendees to possibly win a prize. Also, check out Girl Up Trivia and join the scavenger hunt.
The official hashtag for the summit is #Girlsly20. Although we can't take selfies together to kick off the hashtag, we are going to do a screenshot. Before we do, you can also follow my Girl Up Club at GirlUpCCB on Instagram.
And you can also follow my Girl Up Club at ATS Girl Up. Now, let's take a selfie.
Everyone smile.
Perfect. Now we want you to post on your social media to connect with attendees and speakers using #GirlsLeague20. Show off where you are tuning in from or just your fabulous smiles. Who knows, a speaker may tweet you back.
Before we get started, we want to say thank you to the 2020 Girl Up Leadership Summit presenting sponsor, P&G, and for their inspiring We See Equal program for gender equality. Thank you also goes to our summit event sponsors, Always and Whisper, Boost Allen Hamilton, Gallagher, Noble Panacea, and Sadie B.
A special thank you to Girl Up Strategic Partners, the Caterpillar Foundation, WWE, Anu Jane, and Kylie Schuyler for their ongoing transformational support of Girl Up. Your investments allow us to support our growing global community of changemakers. We'd also like to acknowledge Girl Up's corporate partners, the Cotton On Foundation, the Millennium Challenge Corporation, the TE Foundation Theory, the US Department of State Office for Global Partnerships, and the Girl Up Collection by Unidesign. Without your continued support, Girl Up would not be the force that it is today.
With that, we are so excited to be kicking off our programming with one of our girl heroes. The person coming to the stage epitomizes what it means to stand up and show up for gender equality. She is a lawyer, author, and former First Lady, Michelle Obama.
Please give a warm welcome to Michelle Obama.
Hi, everyone. I wish we could be together sharing hugs and laughs in person, but I am so thankful that Girl Up has found a way to keep us connected and celebrate the power of girls all over the world. Over these past few months, there's been so much uncertainty. You all are dealing with serious loss in your own families and abrupt changes to your daily lives, especially when it comes to your education. But you all have shown incredible resilience in difficult circumstances before. Your determination over so many years has already helped countless girls create a brighter future for themselves and their families. And this pandemic has only shown that your efforts are even more important right now. We know from past crises like Ebola that the struggles that many girls already face are worsened in times like these. Violence at home, child marriage and teen pregnancy, economic hardship, and caretaking responsibilities within families. Challenges like these are made even more stark in times of crisis. And that, of course, includes education. The Malala Fund predicts that when students are eventually allowed back into their classrooms, an additional 10 million girls of secondary school age could remain out of school. And we can't let that happen. We can't let these girls be forgotten during this crisis. The stakes are just too high. Because when we give girls the chance to learn, we give them the opportunity to fulfill their potential, build healthier families, and contribute to their countries' economies for generations to come. That's why we started the Girls Opportunity Alliance at the Obama Foundation, because we believe that the millions of adolescent girls around the world who aren't in school today can make a profound difference for their families, their communities, and our entire world, but only if they have the opportunity and the education to get it done. I know that all of you believe that too. And that's why we are excited to work hand in hand with each and every one of you. And you can start by joining me in spreading the word about global girls' education with the hashtag Girls Opportunity Alliance. I've already seen your ability to create change all over the world. Girl Up clubs have stepped up in incredible, inspiring ways during the pandemic, from making face masks for their communities in Mexico to setting up online learning platforms in Malawi. With every action you take, you're proving that you're not just the leaders of tomorrow, you're already the leaders of today. So thank you again. Thank you for everything you're doing. I can't wait to see how you'll come together to change the world and help all girls fulfill their boundless promise. Have a great summit. See ya.
Wow, how inspiring was Mrs. Obama? I love hearing from champions who are leading our intersectional movement for gender equality.
That was so powerful, and she's right. Youth activists are the leaders of today, not the future. Now, I'm super excited to introduce you to Gabrielle. Gabrielle is a Girl Up Club leader who founded an organization at her school called Project Justice. Please give a warm welcome to Gabrielle.
In 8th grade, my giggling friend came up to me outside our classroom to show me her phone screen. Assuming it would be juicy gossip or a funny meme, I grabbed her phone eagerly, expecting to get a good laugh before class. I was wrong. It was a group chat with all the popular boys in our grade, most of whom were white and were also our friends. When I started scrolling through, I'd never seen such vulgar language in my life. One message from a white Christian male described my Jewish friend as a B-word, C-word, N-word who deserved to go burn with the other 6 million Jews. Other messages quite frequently described me as a fat N-word. I was 13 years old and had never been called that word in my life, especially not by a friend. I realized, of course, that these boys never were my friends, and I reported their behavior to my Black principal immediately. It was difficult at first to speak up. Not only was I not white, but I also wasn't one of the guys. I was a girl, a Black girl. The boys in that group chat didn't respect me or care what I had to say. They felt entitled to spew racial slurs because they were confident they'd get away with it. This time they didn't. The only Black girl in the friend group got them a 2-day suspension. The only Black girl in the friend group was harassed for the rest of the school year. Black lives matter, of course. Black lives have mattered before George Floyd and before Eric Garner and before Trayvon Martin, and get this, even before Emmett Till. A good majority of the Black Lives Matter movement has centered around how racism has brutally confronted Black men. What we have not heard much about is how racism has impacted Black women. Often missing from the conversation were the names of victims such as Eleanor Bumpus, Sandra Bland, and Breonna Taylor. Virtually forgotten were the stories of heroes like Fannie Lou Hamer and Ida B. Wells, who advocated for anti-lynching laws as thousands of Black men were victimized in the South, and Aisha Evans, who fearlessly confronted riot police during the uprising in Baton Rouge, protesting the police shootings of Alton Bell and Philando Castile. Black women have stood up to injustice and fought for the lives of their brothers while watching as the world trivializes the impact these injustices have had on them as the most vulnerable women in society. In 8th grade, I had to learn to stand up, even if I was standing alone, and I was standing alone. Nobody in my majority white friend group had my back when the white male students hissed at me and bullied me online in retaliation. I don't regret speaking up against my so-called friends, but at the time it felt so risky and out of character. Today, I understand that my actions were completely in character. Black women have routinely stood up against injustice on all fronts, even if the history in the media doesn't reflect that. The Women's March was co-founded by Black women. The Me Too movement was started by Black women. A Black trans woman with a brick ignited the Stonewall riots for LGBTQ plus rights. Rosa Parks was arguably the most crucial catalyst of the civil rights movement, and I could go on. Black women have fought for everybody, but who's fighting for Black women? Did we go as hard for Breonna as we did for George? Who's appreciating Black women? Black male artists such as Kodak Black profit off of songs saying, "I don't want no Black B word." My 8th grade friends liked curves and textured hair and full lips, but did they ever like the way those looked on me? I'm just gonna say I'm kind of sick of hashtags. Sure, they can be helpful for spreading information and taking up virtual space, but I see too many young people reducing their activism to just a hashtag under a black screen. Like anyone, I've had a lot of time to myself this spring, so I decided I would take a stand and continue the legacy of Black women activists by starting a group at my school with 2 friends called Project Justice. We will partner with groups like Girl Up to give students an avenue to confront and challenge injustice wherever we see it. Black girls, if you haven't already, join me. Start your own clubs, apply for leadership in existing clubs, hold your administrations accountable, but whatever you do, make noise. You have an army of women behind you. We have a legacy to uphold, and the movement needs what you have to offer. People, especially middle and high school students, will try to tell Black girls, "You're being a snitch," or "You're being too extra." But what they really mean is you're being heard, and now they're intimidated. Good for you. Thank you, everyone.
Inspired me, especially when you said, welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much. Gabrielle, your words really inspired me.
It is my honor to introduce you to the next fireside chat. To the next panel, Pull Up or Shut Up, moderated by Girl Up Teen Advisor Winter. Please give them a warm welcome.
Good morning. It's so great to finally see you guys. Thank you so much for joining me at this panel today. First things first, I would just like to jump right into the first question. We know that the history of the feminist movement prioritized the rights of white, cis, heterosexual, able-bodied women. So do you consider yourself a feminist? And if not, what do you identify as?
Should I go first? Can everyone hear me? Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm Dee Poku. I'm so honored to be here. I feel like there's a, okay. I feel like there's a delay. What does that mean? Can you hear me? Okay. Anyway, I'll just speak because I'm not sure. So yes, I very much consider myself a feminist. It is, woven into my DNA. And I think to explain why, I will use the Maya Angelou quote, "I'm a feminist. I've been female for a long time now. It would be stupid not to be on my own side."
Would anyone else like to add to that?
Hi, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm Viviana Santiago. It's a huge pleasure to be here with you girls, and it's a pleasure because I can connect myself with you, and I can see that our history don't start now, because we can remember that women that was here before us. And when I see you, I can see the women who are here now and the next women. I'm a feminist, yeah. I'm a Black intersectional feminist, because I really realize that it's impossible. Don't be feminist if you are a woman, because it's about our woman lives. But also, I'm a Black woman I'm a poor woman, I'm a single mom woman. So I think the Black feminism and with an intersectional approach can put on the table the issues that are in my life right now. And it's not a problem because we are diverse like women. So we will have a lot of approaches in feminism too.
I love that you bring up the word intersectionality. It's very, very important to the movement that we're trying to express. I love that you also, bring out your culture, the fact that you're a Black woman and a single mother. I think those are also two very important aspects of feminism, is recognizing everybody's different and everyone's cultures. So thank you so much for sharing that. Trisha, did you want to speak on that, if you consider yourself a feminist, and if not, why not?
Oh, of course. I think at this point, we shouldn't really be, asking questions like, why are you a feminist? You should be asking someone, why aren't they? So the onus of having us explain our oppression that we've been subject to, the systematic violence our bodies have been subject to, not just biological women, but the LGBTQI community, gender non-conforming people. Of course, I think it's we're in 2020. It's high time we move beyond justifying why we are feminists to pinning the tail of the donkey. That is calling out people who don't identify as one if they don't know, if they're not old enough to know, they're young enough to learn. I think now is the time we encourage people to learn, unlearn systematic oppressions, discrimination, violence, and ask how people can be better feminists, better allies to the gender equality movement.
Absolutely. And I definitely think that you did the perfect lead into our next question, which is the movement for gender equality cannot be about equality to white men because their status is rooted in the oppression of others. What do you think the goals for the movement should be?
Sorry, did you say equality for white men?
I said the movement for gender equality cannot be about equality to white men because their status is rooted in the oppression of others. And then what would you say the goals are?
Look, we often hear this conversation, right? Equity, equality, this, that. What I always say, having been in rooms with world leaders, with dignitaries from the highest of offices, I'll tell you this, everyone is had countries sign the Sustainable Development Goals, ratify it, right? But here's the thing, every time you start talking about the inequality, the violence, the discrimination, women, gender non-conforming people are subject to, those are the things they don't want to address, because that makes them uncomfortable. So the point that we need to focus on is highlighting the discrimination. I always say, sunlight is the best disinfectant. So we need to be in spaces where we are passing the mic to the most economically disfranchised, to the most marginalized, to the most discriminated against, and allow them to share their truth, their complete, unfiltrated, unapologetic truth, regardless if it makes you uncomfortable to listen to. Because I always say, if listening to these stories makes you uncomfortable, imagine what the person's body is going through who's being subject to that violence. So we listen, we unlearn, we learn, and we keep holding our elected leaders accountable to do better. That's how I would answer your question.
Thank you so much. And I love that you prefaced learning and unlearning, because a lot of times we're taught feminism and the ideas of gender equality in the wrong way. And as society evolves, we definitely have to evolve with it. So thank you so much for answering that. I did want to direct the question to Viviana. I was wondering, how do you think personally we can do better as women to support other women, especially to center our women of color, our LGBTQ+ women, and our disabled women?
We live in this society when people socialize us to understand that women don't like women. I live here in Brazil, and it's a truth here that a woman cannot be friend for other women because women are all the time fighting against each other. And I think the first step we need to have in our feminist movement is take care each other, because we are women, and if it's possible that we are here, it's only because we are together. I think this idea that women are not friend each other is the most powerful weapon from the patriarchy, because it can keep us uh, really far each other. So the first step is recognize that we really, really, really are powerful if we are together. Then we need to have that idea that, like women, we really, really, really are diverse. So I'm a black woman. So you are young. I was young some time ago, but we are women. It's the thing that connect us. And instead of seeing that, oh, it keep me away from you, what keep us connected? I think it's important, but it's not a problem that we are diverse. It's really beautiful because we can see the life really from this point. So really, really, really have this open heart to diversity, to the open mind to the idea that we are really powerful if we are connected and take care each other. Really embrace a sisterhood, because it's not here in Brazil we have that word sororidade, which means that we are really more than a sisterhood. We are really connected because we are the same, we are one. And I think it's important. It's not only about black or colored women, but if we can see that like women, we are facing a lot of problems because we are women. We will connect each other. But black women, we need to recognize our power and we need to put our issues on the table. And here in Brazil, it's not easy because all the time people are talking, oh, but you are dividing the movement. No, oh, it's not about woman, it's about woman. It's about be a woman. They go, oh, what do you mean? If I am saying that I'm a black woman, I'm not saying that I'm not a woman. It's about racism when we think that because I'm saying I'm a black woman, I'm not a human or I'm not a woman. So I think we need to address our issues and our racial issues, like black or people or women of color, and we need to do it together, because but without forget that we are women. It's not only about race, it's about our experience like women, because a black man don't face the problems I face because I'm a single mom or because I can't walk on the streets at night. Do you mean? I think it's my idea, and we need to celebrate this diversity inside our group, our Black women movement.
Thank you so much for that. I definitely think that we need to celebrate our diversity and show that, you know, we spans over so many cultures. So I really appreciated that. And some things that I gained from what you said was sisterhood and unity, which are both extremely important. And I'm so glad that you touched on them. I also had a question for Dee. What do you think the role is for those who believe in gender equality, specifically in the movement for racial justice?
Sure. I think the important thing is that sometimes when we look at these issues, it feels unsurmountable. It feels like there's so much to do. It feels like, you know, that as individuals, we don't have enough, you know, impact. And I think that we have to understand that it's through all of our individual micro actions that we affect change at a sort of national level and at a global level. And so I think we have to recognize our individual power. I think that we have to see ourselves as united. We have to not sort of divide ourselves by gender or by race, or just really sort of recognize, our sort of global humanity and our global connectedness, and see one another as in a fight for justice for all. And so by that, I mean that we can take individual actions at a micro level every day in our schools, in our colleges, in our communities, inside our homes. If you claim to be for me as a Black woman, and if you hear something in your home, if you hear something in your school that you think is wrong, then you are in a position to speak out. So it's not, for me, sort of performative activism. It's not just about marching on the streets. It's about, what are you doing to be uncomfortable in your homes, in your communities, and then that's really what will sort of change everything on a broader level. So that's really what I would love to see.
Absolutely. Dealing with those microaggressions and those small situations that may not seem blatantly racist it's very important for us to address those. And I know that you mentioned the fight for equality in a more equitable world. And I also know from personal experience that can get very exhausting physically and emotionally sometimes. How do you and Trisha and Viviana, how do you guys take care of your mental health, and how do you find joy in the work that you do?
I'm not sure who the question was directed to first, sorry.
Anyone can answer it. It's just an open question. The question was, how do you take care of your mental health?
So look, being in my line of work, I have heard everything, every abuse you could possibly be called. I have been called a whore, prostitute, every single thing. People have described in graphic detail exactly how they will rape me and brutalize my body. I live a high threat life. I can't do public events without security being present. I say all this not to paint a gory picture. I say all this to tell you the truth. This is what any person, any woman who dares to claim her agency and speak up for her rights is subject to. It's either threats online, offline, all of those things. How do I survive? I have a therapist on call that I routinely speak to, as and when I suffer from. I have in the past suffered from PTSD, debilitating anxiety. When I needed, I was prescribed and got on medication. I'm not advocating medication. What I'm saying is it's important to account for mental health as you would your physical health, because this work breaks you. It breaks you on a day-to-day basis. Second, figuring out some way that centers you. So having an identity beyond work, that's critical. This is a conversation I had with my therapist regularly, because we do such high intensive on-ground work that we often forget that you have an identity beyond that. So you take work very personally. It took me a long time to figure out what is my identity beyond work. So for the simplest things like gardening, the soil in gardening, it has natural microbes that serve as natural antidepressants. So, forcing yourself to exercise, being as religious you are about the work you're doing, being equally religious about preserving your temple, your physical space. Also knowing when to draw a line. This was difficult for me. I had to be taught and told when to step away from my work, that there's nothing more you can do. Step away, it's breaking you, it's destroying you. So these things. And lastly, finding a solidarity group of people that will ask you how are you and truly mean it, who will check in on you, who will be there with you through the bad days, and and will cheer you on publicly, online, offline, because the threats we get is online. Just sliding into someone's DM and saying, hey, I'm there for you, is not enough. We need that online validation to counter the vicious pushback we get online. So be vocal about your support online so that others can see, and be deliberate and intentional about it. And remember that no one in this space, when they put on a smile and pretend that they have, excuse my language, their shit together, no one does. Everyone is drowning at some point or the other. It's only a matter of 2 steps forward, 5 steps back, 2 steps forward, 5 steps back, figuring out what is it that drives you to get up. And cold showers. It's brilliant. When you're just having a terrible anxiety attack and you cannot move, there are days I can't move to get up and take a bath or brush my teeth. I force myself to get in the shower, have a cold shower. It's proven to help you deal with anxiety well. So figure out what, helps you get your shit together.
That's such great advice. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's a lot of times we forget to take care of ourselves in this time, and it can be very, very taxing work. Like you said, it can break you. And I definitely appreciate you sharing that. I do believe that we're out of time, but thank you guys so much for joining me this morning. It was wonderful to meet you. You all have a wonderful day.
Hi everyone and welcome. I am Céline Talabaza, the CEO of Noble Panacea, a newly launched skincare line founded by a Nobel laureate based on science, disruptive technology and innovation. Education is very much part of the core of the brand, as we were born in a laboratory in a university. So I'm very proud to be supporting Girl Up. I wish you to have a very inspiring summit, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of you achieving great work in the upcoming years.
Thank you so much. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for that message from Global Panacea, and thank you, Viviana, Trisha, Dee, and Winter for showing how we can all be true leaders in the movement for gender equality.
I love everything you ladies spoke about, and now it is my honor to introduce the next fireside chat, The Future is Queer, with Jessamine, Jodie, and Girl Up leaders Rebecca and Trisha, who will be discussing the need for safe spaces and their role in the gender equality movement.
As a member and a passionate advocate for the LGBTQ community, it is one of my personal goals to ensure that lesbian, bisexual, transgender people can live openly without discrimination and enjoy equal rights, personal autonomy, and freedom of expression. The future is here, and it's queer. Without further ado, please help me welcome Jessamine, Jodie, Rebecca, and Trisha.
Hi, all.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Future is Queer panel. My name is Trisha Venkatesh, and I'm a current Girl Up teen advisor from Bangalore, India. My pronouns are she, her, and I'll be one of your moderators today.
Hello, Weather. I was a former co-chair for the Teen Advisor class, and I am the founder and CEO of BuzzCut Post. My pronouns are she and her, and I am proudly a part of the LGBTQ+ community.
Our panelists today are two incredible change makers who have used their voice and platform to advocate for the LGBTQ+ community, Jodie Patterson and Jessamine Stanley. Before we begin with the questions, could we please have the both of you introduce yourselves with your preferred pronouns, a little bit about your work and your connection to the LGBTQ+ community?
Sure. You want to go first? I don't know if we can hear you.
I don't think you're audible, Jessamine.
Is it just me? Yeah, we can't hear anything you're saying. I'm going to jump in.
Difficulties.
I'll jump in.
Yeah.
I'll jump in. So hi, I'm Jodie Patterson. This is very new to all of us doing this virtually. We wish we could be with you personally, but hopefully you can hear us, and we're giving you as much of the emotion that we feel on this topic. I'm a mom of 5. I grew up in New York City, not knowing much about the the depth of the LGBTQAI community. But when my third child said, "Mama, I'm not a girl, I'm a boy," I had to quickly understand that there was a whole section of life that I just wasn't tuned into. And so over the years, I've really tried to understand not only my trans son, but my genderqueer daughter and myself in a different way in a way that defies labels and heteronormative, particularly labels. And so over the years, I've now written a book on my experience as a woman coming to understand queerness. As a 50-year-old mom, changing. I've also become the the chair of the board of the Human Rights Campaign Foundation, our largest LGBT organization. My entire life has sort of shifted to meet the challenge of sharing with the world what I know about our identities, particularly our gender identities. So I'm glad to be here.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I know we're calling in Jessamine, so hopefully her audio works.
Well, I'll fill in until she kicks in, but I can't wait for her to join us.
So I guess we'll start because our first question is actually to you, Jody. So you wrote in your book, The Bold World, about your experience raising 5 kids, learning how to parent, and becoming an advocate because your son Penelope came out as transgender. So how can we work on making the world safer and accepting for transgender individuals, and how does a parent go about talking to their child about gender and sexuality?
I think a lot of us are coming from, and I speak from experience, we're coming from a place of blind spots. I didn't have an awareness of what trans meant. I didn't have a true awareness of what gender nonconformity meant. Of course, I had seen all the negative images in film that connected gender nonconformity to something dangerous. And so when my child said, "I am not who you think I am. I'm not a girl, I'm a boy," I had to really strip away what I knew or what I had learned and sort of re-educate myself. I had to expand the people in my own life, because in order to be an ally or an advocate or someone standing next to someone in partnership, you have to really understand that person's life, right? So I think one of the things that we have to tell ourselves is that if our friend group looks just like ourselves, we're not doing justice to this movement. I had, as a cisgender mom, woman, Black woman, I had to look at my friend group on social media, for example, like Facebook, right? Everyone looked like me. Black, female, educated, upper middle class, cisgender. And at one point, I thought that was a great thing. But when I had to raise my child as a proud trans person, and I had to educate myself as someone who was going to hold no bias towards him, I had to make sure that my friend group expanded. So one year I said to my whole family, this year we're going to make new friends, but you're going to have to expand your friend group, and everyone has to be gender nonconforming, intersex, or trans. And my kids thought that was a weird and awkward moment, demanding that our new friends take a certain form. But it is awkward to change your life, not superficially, but in a deep way. And so my friend group, through intention and awkward steps, is now very diverse, not just ethnically, not just demographically, not just economically, but also in terms of gender identity. And I think that's important for us as people who we can't really help someone over there. This is a we thing. We have to embrace this, get to know folks that are different from us, and then start the learning from that point. But as long as we are blind to the other life, the LGBT life, the queer life, the trans life, not much can be done. So we really have to expand our friend group to become queer. How is that?
Thank you
Can you
for that.
hear all of
I think, can Jasmine speak now?
You guys hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. So just to introduce myself, my name's Jessamine Stanley. I'm a yoga teacher. I'm the author of Everybody Yoga. I am the founder of the Underbelly Yoga. I came out as a queer femme when I was 17, and my pronouns are she, her, they, them. And I really resonated with a lot of what was just said. It's so fascinating, frankly, I came out at a time when it was not trendy to be queer. And to put frankly, people feel much more comfortable with this conversation now than they did whenever I came out. And so it's been weird to watch that shift in time. It's been very interesting to go from seeing like my mother who cried when I came out and made it 100% like, what are we going to tell people? How are we going to move forward, to see her transition from that to this space of like, oh, acceptance, we can talk about these things. It's so weird to watch that happen. And it makes me really acutely aware of how crucial actually having conversations, not just with our community. I think it's very easy to be like, oh, like I need to read this book and I need to post about this topic or whatever. And we're seeing it a lot in this conversation about anti-Blackness and white supremacy. We're seeing a lot of like performative awareness, performative activism. And it's fascinating to see that truly none of that matters. All that matters is the work that we do within ourselves and how we reflect that to our immediate community. I think that the more that we can actually acknowledge internalized biases, why we are hateful toward other people, and that comes from a space of self-hate. I think that until that work is done, it's like putting a bandage on top of a deep infection. And but I think that these conversations are very important, and actually like getting to a place where everyone feels like their voice can be heard.
100%. This is an internal activity first. We have to really address it inside of ourselves before we go outside and help others. This is about really understanding that, for me at least, and I don't want to jump into the next question, but for me, so much of what you just said resonated. And I came up I'm 50 years old, so 50 years ago, queer was not a word full of love or possibility or even beauty. And now at 50, I embrace the term queer for its limitlessness, for its possibility, for a blueprint for the future, because it's the word for me, and words change all the time. So 50 years from now, it'll be something else. 10 years from now, it'll be something else. But for me today, the word queer is the word that holds the most freedom. And I don't want to be boxed in, nor do my children want to be boxed in to heteronormative rules or white supremacist rules or any rules, really. I think there's a moment right now where I think imagination and freedom are going to propel us into something we've never seen before, something better.
Thank you, both of you, for your answers. I think we're running a little bit short on time, so we're going to have to finish with the question, what do you guys think the statement, "the future is queer," really means to you? And what are your visions for the future with regards to inclusivity for the community?
To me, the future is queer means that the future is going to be inclusive of everything that we all are. I think that one of the problems with finding some space wherein everyone can find, quote, equality is that we don't actually treat each other as equals. Definitely, it can frequently feel like the LGBTQIA+ community is held as like a separate community from everybody else, that it's like there's everybody and then there's this special community, and that we need to be inclusive of this special community. And I think it's so crucial for us to understand that we're all one, and that if one of us suffers, then all of us suffer. And that until we acknowledge each person as being exactly as we are, that we have no future, we have no way of really doing the collective healing work that's needed for us to live in this embodied future of being queer. Yeah.
I was literally on that same page. My take on the future is queer is, it might sound very extra and radical for people. But for me, it is as inclusive as Black Lives Matter, right? When we say Black Lives Matter, we mean that the most invisible has to come forward for all of us to really actualize this life. And when I say the future is queer, I mean that we are queer, we are trans, we are lesbian, we are intersex, we are bi, we are gay. We have to say the we so that we can all move together towards freedom, towards liberation, towards happiness. And John Lewis, who's a great civil rights activist, has always said, we are gay. He's a Black man, and he came up understanding that civil rights, that Black folks needed more visibility. He's also a Black man who can say, we are gay, we are trans. And I've learned that from him. This is a we thing. And until we can say the word queer with pride and beauty, we're not really doing the work. So we have to get that in our mouths, in our hearts. We are queer. And it doesn't take away from anyone. It just adds to the endless possibilities going forward.
I love that. I think that we have to continue to make the LGBTQ plus community safe for ourselves and safe for others. But luckily we have time for one more question. So I guess we'll keep going. So as you know, the Leadership Summit's mission statement is we need to talk. And there are a lot of girls and a lot of individuals out there who are still conflicted on their own identity and don't know how to either express themselves or talk to the ones that they love the most. So what advice would you give to people who are still discovering their own queerness and self-love and acceptance? And how do we as a whole continue to advocate for LGBTQ plus inclusivity?
I mean, honestly, I feel like the best thing, at least for me, is to just remember that the hard conversations are hard on purpose, that we're peeling back layers upon layers of identity to see this incredible light that flows from each of us. And I think that actually just being okay with the fact that, like, yeah, it's hard, you know, this is hard work, it's tough medicine, and that it's something for, I mean, because even if you even if it's just the process of accepting just yourself, not even thinking about how anyone else is going to feel about it, but like, because for all you know, like, everyone else in your life could be really chill and be like, I totally accept this about you. And usually I think that comes from a space of just being able to really accept it within yourself, and it's hard and it's complicated, and that's okay, and that's what you're built for as a human, and that it's excellent work for everything else that comes next. And I think that, you know, right now especially now that hard conversations are becoming like a trending topic, I think that we're all fearful of saying the wrong thing and not getting it right and doing things wrong. And I just think that accepting that you will do it wrong, you will not always say what is, you will offend someone eventually, and that doesn't mean that you can't be an ally. It doesn't mean that you can't be present and show up for the people that you love, and really accepting that work is the most important work.
I agree. This is hard work, right? Finding out who you are, understanding your own identity. This is what so many revolutionaries have talked about. The revolution will not be televised. It's an internal work, right? And that's hard work. And the thing that we are taught as women, as girls, to do is to please others, serve others. We are excellent at defining ourselves in relationship to others, but what we're talking about in this group today is the self-work, right? Defining yourself. And so one of the things to get us to the point, give yourself some time, but do what it takes to get untether. Means so much to you. It might be your parents, it might be your spouse, it might be your grades or your school. You have to let those things go for 5 minutes so that you can just be yourself, unattached. That's helped me define myself. The other thing is, my father taught me this. You're not born to be pretty, you're born to be powerful. So when you start looking at yourself as an activist, a powerful person who can untether and then go right back to being around folks, potential to change the world, who can say, I am king, I'm not queen, I'm king, because I own this body, who can play with words, who can shake up the system, who can not be status quo, but obliterate the normal. When you start thinking of yourself as powerful, the months and the years go by and all of a sudden you are who you are, and then the whole world can deal with it, right? So remember, you're not born to be pretty, you're born to be powerful.
Damn. That is a great way to end this panel. I just want to say a sincere thank you to both of you, as well as Trisha. This panel is so important, and we need to continue to have conversations like this. So all of those who are watching at home, please continue to do the work, continue to educate yourself, learn new terminology, and be inclusive and create new safe spaces, and donate to LGBTQ plus inclusivity and safe spaces. Do the work and put your money where your mouth is. So thank you guys so much once again. And thank you all who watched.
Thank
Bye.
you. Have a good day, guys.
That was amazing. That was such a moving panel. I swear to God, I had tears in my eyes for the most part of that panel. It was incredible. I loved it so much.
Yeah.
Now give it up one more time for Jessamine and Jody. Such an amazing fireside chat. Next up
Hearing
is
all the stories, it was so inspiring. Next up is the All Our Friends Are Allies panel, moderated by Liz Platt. Please help us all give a warm welcome to Liz and the panel.
Hi, everyone. How's everyone doing? Hello, hello, hello. I've just been sitting here and I've been so inspired by all of the beautiful voices I've been hearing. I've been taking notes. You're born to be not pretty but powerful is really incredible. So I believe I am introducing our panelists right now for our next panel. Yes, I am. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do it. So our panel next is called All My Friends Are Allies, where we'll be discussing allyship in this very important moment, this very historical moment of this rise in social movements, the Black Lives Matter movement being at the forefront of all of our minds. And so, as a feminist who writes about men and as a white person that is invested in racial justice, I have probably, like you, been thinking a lot about allyship a whole lot lately. So although I wrote a whole book about male allyship, I don't think I ever actually used the term allyship. I prefer Barbara Smith's term of co-conspirator because I think it suggests, an active place. Sorry, I thought I lost everyone. And so today we're going to talk about what that looks like, right? That racism, sexism, and every other ism is passed down, right? We're not born this way. And I actually compare it to the Macarena, right? We all know how to do it, but we don't know how we learned how to do it. So I would love to introduce our panelists. And with that, I'm going to start with Bria Baker, who is the Director of Programs for Inspire Justice. She is a racial and gender justice activist who's working locally and nationally towards the liberation of all oppressed people with an emphasis on Black people. She has an amazing Instagram account, which I recommend you all go and read. And look at. It's awesome. We have Wade Davis, who is a Girl Up champion. He's also the former NFL player. He was the first diversity inclusion consultant for the NFL. He's a badass. And then we have Mohammed Farshori. He actually started his career at AT&T 14 years ago as a call center sales representative, and now he's a director of community engagement for AT&T. So we're really excited to have you all with us this morning. Can everyone hear us? Well,
yes.
Everyone. Great.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Woohoo. I'm pumped. Bria, let's start with you. So we have this wild idea in American society and beyond that women are meant to fix sexism and that it is Black people's problem that racism needs to be fixed, and we ask them to fix it, right? We ask trans people to explain transphobia and help cis people not be so nervous and weird in bathrooms about them being and having to right to privacy in that bathroom. So now that we're really, in this really historical moment in activism, in social justice, you are one of the leaders in this movement. I've been really inspired by so much of the writing that you've been doing and so much of the, I think, difficult conversations that you've been having. So what has this moment taught you about what effective allyship really means?
Yeah, first and foremost, thank you for recentering the conversation around co-conspirators and Barbara Smith, because I do think that language matters. And allyship can sort of feel like, oh, I pick it up, I play with it, and then I put it back on the shelf. But what we really need is people who are willing to commit for the long haul. And to the point that you just made, recognize that racism is not a problem that people of color created and have to fix, but those who are benefiting from white privilege and from colorism, et cetera, it's their responsibility to be at the forefront of this work. And obviously, those of us who are directly impacted and are victimized by these systems are going to be speaking out. But until it becomes less of a moral issue and less of a charity and more of a solidarity point and understanding like we created this and we continue to benefit from it until people like me, aka people who need to be allies and accomplices in this work, step up, we won't have that real systemic change. And I think that's why this moment feels so different. We're seeing that real allyship of people putting their bodies on the lines, consistently showing up to protest, and really being a consistent voice in this moment. And we need that to stay that way, not just for the month of June 2020, but for the rest of this year and ongoing, because 400 years of systemic racism cannot be dismantled in a month.
Yeah. And what are you seeing differently, right? Because I feel like we went from, Ally was like posting, right, like the minimum, the standard, like posting a king quote on MLK Day, and like then you're done. Do you think that we've gone from more performative activism and allyship to a more effective kind?
I think it depends. Some people have, and some people are sort of still stuck in that space. But I do think that we're seeing more of a centering of Black voices now than even a couple of years ago when Black Lives Matter movement was first founded. I think in that moment, there was a lot of speaking for Black people. And now it's this very clear, like, there's nothing we need to be doing but amplifying those who are closest to the problems because they're also closest to the solutions. And so play out in some of the digital strategy that's happening with, the share the mic and passing the platform, I think is so, so powerful and strategic. But more than that, it's seeing allies and accomplices step behind the demands that directly impacted people are asking for. So not saying and not regurgitating conversations around body cams, but recognizing Black people are talking about defunding and what does it mean for the rest of us to get on that page and understand where this community is coming from as opposed to arguing with them. And we'll still see some people who are in those echo chambers of pushing back against this radical, beautiful activism. But I think for the most part, we're also seeing these multiracial coalitions showing up and allies actually recognizing their place, and not just white allies, but non-Black people of color as well. And it's really powerful.
Yeah, I love what you just, so much of what you just said, but yeah, the closer you are to the problem, the closer you are to the solution. And I think that that is such an important reframing of that conversation too, that, Renee Myers, who heads diversity and inclusion at Netflix and has been at the forefront of so many of these conversations, we'll talk about privilege being like your superpower, like use it, right? Invest it. Because you're in the room where some people aren't, and therefore use that as, your magical power. So Wade, let's go to you. First of all, we were just hanging out talking about masculinity and masks just the other day. So it's nice to see you here as well. In my book that I actually interviewed you for, I wrote that our definition of masculinity is the greatest threat to humankind. And I wrote that a year ago and I got a lot of pushback for that. And I think that in the era that we're living in right now, we're seeing that come more and more true, not less and less true. So you have been talking about masculinity for so long. You have been at the forefront of this conversation. So I'm curious if you can talk about what men should be doing right now, or can be doing, or could be doing right now, and why their freedom is just as wrapped up as women's freedom in the fight against gender equality and all of the conversations that we're having today at Girl Up.
Yeah, I think one of the hardest things for men to do is realize that patriarchy and sexism and misogyny, and all these things harm men too, right? They actually literally kill men. And I think it's very hard for us to realize that there's a direct impact on our lives. So my recommendation for men is to first to realize that we built this patriarchal system. So it's our job to not ally ourselves with, to not be allies with women, but to be allies alongside of women, right? And to really interrogate, when was the first time that you as a young boy realized that you were taught that being a boy was better than being a girl? To start to reflect on those moments when someone told a woman, a little girl, to cross her legs or to go and cover herself up, and start to interrogate like how that became true for you, and then to think about all of the power that you have, and then to determine about what am I willing to give up, because you actually have to give up something. You actually don't dismantle all of these isms and systems without actually be willing to give up something, and that may mean to give up all of your friends who are still practicing all of these isms and phobia. That may also mean to give up a relationship with your parent, right? So I would say that men's first job is to do a self-inventory and to own openly and honestly that you are sexist, right? To own that you have been insidiously socialized to believe that men, or that to identify as a man is to be better than a woman. To own that first, that gives you a chance to actually be a part of the dismantling of the system.
And I love that you speak about giving up, right? The things that I as a white person have to give up in order to be an anti-racist, and and so on and so forth for all the different identities that we've been talking about today. What are men? What do men get? And more specifically, we can talk about all kinds of different identities. I've mentioned transphobia. I think cisgender people get a lot out of living in a society where people feel safe and have privacy wherever they're going. What do men get from participating in anti-sexism and gender equality work?
So I would say the biggest thing that men get is our humanity. And there is nothing more important than your own individual humanity. And I get that may sound really above it all, or right, or like really high in the sky. But here's the truth: if I dehumanize someone else, I have to realize that I'm also dehumanizing myself. Right? There's a cyclical thing that's actually happening. So if I want to be a full human being, right, with the ability to love, because that is, at the end of the day, as Baldwin says, all that we have in this world is relationships. So if I am constantly dehumanizing someone else, I actually lose my own humanity. So I want men to actually hear that you gain yourself when you start to unlearn the idea that masculinity and femininity are somehow oppositional. You get to gain a range of emotions, of behaviors, of attitudes, and you get to realize that you've been stuck, that you've been living in this very narrow understanding of what it means to be a man, and you've also been defining your manhood externally. As Audre Lorde says, if I did not define myself for myself, I would be crushed in the imaginations of others and eaten alive. Men are eating themselves alive, and that's what I want men to understand.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. So Mohammed, we haven't heard from you. I wanna hear from you, in terms of we've seen corporate America really also take many different steps that they've not taken in the past, and say Black Lives Matter, and make changes in their policy or in their hiring practices. But there's also been a lot of companies that have just put out statements and believe that that's enough. So what do you say to people who want more accountability right now from the most powerful leaders in corporate America?
I mean, definitely. Thanks for the great question. I mean, the way I look at this whole thing is, the message to folks is that if you have never had some authority decide if you have the same rights as others, you have privilege. And how do you use that privilege, right? And whatever position you're in, and as men, and Wade, made a great point around, toxic masculinity, where, it's a whole ripple effect with gender equality, racial inequality, and I'm just glad that the conversation has started, and companies have realized that this is an issue where we need to get comfortable to have uncomfortable conversations, and we need to make sure that we need to put the ones that are oppressed, the marginalized communities are at the table, because if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And the way we can do that is by having those conversations, having those dialogues, and stop tolerating each other. And because tolerance is for cowards, and the only way you can go from tolerance to understanding is through dialogue, and that's the first step towards this, and that's exactly what we're doing right now. And I'm seeing a big change in my 16 years career here in the U.S. that I've never seen a movement like this, and it's not a moment, it's a movement, and I'm just glad to be a part of it. And there's hope, and we're just glad to be part of this panel where we have these amazing community leaders that are doing phenomenal work. So again, kudos to you all. But this is the movement that we're seeing around gender equality and racial inequality is nothing like I've seen before.
Mm. And we don't have any people with disabilities on our panel, although they've been represented on panels all day. But I'll ask you, Mohammed, what does your company do for people with disabilities, and what would you like to see corporate America do to be better allies to people with disabilities? Because workplace issues are very, very, very much tied to the survival of the disability community. So I'm just curious what you think corporate America should be doing to support our brothers and sisters, non-binary people with disabilities.
Definitely. So, I think the accountability needs to be there, and I think most companies are doing a great job in terms of making sure that people and employees can bring their authentic self to work every day, right? And I can tell you that as a Muslim Asian man, there are times where I feel like, I'm on the other side of the oppressive divide, but then there are times when I'm a man, and then I have privilege over women. I have a privilege over Black men, Black women. I have a privilege over people that are poor. I have a privilege over people who are disabled. So how do I use that privilege? And I think that is exactly what corporate America is doing, and is standing up. And I just love the messages that are coming out from some of the CEOs. And it comes to CEOs like AT&T coming out and speaking about racial inequality, and talking about going from tolerance to understanding, talking about empowering the employees, empowering the employee resource groups, and empowering the diversity inclusion. I mean, a lot of companies don't even have chief diversity officer roles. A lot of companies don't have sustainability, social responsibilities role. So learn from companies like AT&T and some of the other companies that are doing great work in this area. And that is how we'll go there. That's how we'll achieve these goals when these conversations go from professional lives to personal lives, and go from the meetings to people actually having this conversation with family and friends at the dinner table.
Yeah, and we need these conversations to connect with each other, right? They can't be siloed, or else the progress that we can make as a society just won't happen. So I'm just in awe of our panel. You guys are so amazing. So I want to do like a last, because we're running out of time, a power, like a thunderstorm, whatever you call it, like a 1-minute response to, I think, a question that a lot of people have right now. Many people are afraid to speak up for what's right? They're afraid of getting it wrong. And obviously, we have a lot of young people listening to us today. We have a lot of also older generations listening to us today. And actually, there's not one group that is on, your age doesn't define where you are in the activism journey. I think we've been seeing, Bria, you've been writing about reproductive justice and how, our leaders in that movement need to listen to younger people in that movement. So what is your advice for people who are afraid to speak up right now and who are afraid to get it wrong? Bria, let's start with you and then go to Wade and then Mohammed.
Thanks so much, Liz. Yeah, I would just say quickly that you have to get over the fear of being wrong, because the reality is we're all on a deep unlearning process and we're all going to get it wrong, especially working in the restorative justice and transformative justice spaces. We recognize we all harm people and we are all victims of harm. And until we recognize that, I care more about speaking up than on saying the wrong thing. And I care more about being active and being loud about the issues that I care about than on being perfect each time that I speak. And I think that is what's going to separate those who are performative versus those who are willing to commit to doing the dirty work, and which often is the on-the-job learning process. So just be okay with making mistakes, be in community with people who are willing to call you in when you do make those mistakes.
Love that. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll leave you all with a quote from James Baldwin when he wrote a letter to Angela Davis when she was in jail. And he said, if they come for you in the morning, then they will come for me at night. And what he meant is that oppressions are like diseases, that they don't stay localized. Like you can think about oppression like COVID, right? It started in one place and it spread and it impacts us all. So we have to understand that you're not fighting to end sexism as a man for women. You're fighting to end it for yourself. As white people, you're not fighting to end racism for Black people. You're actually fighting to unlearn whiteness for yourself. So I would just say to understand that all of this is connected. And at some point, the power will come after you.
Goosebumps.
Great point.
Yeah.
And for me, what has really helped me, connect with people and be a strong ally is to acknowledge your privilege. Let people know that you understand, that you may not understand, but you stand with them, right? And be genuine, reach out, learn. Learning is so important right now, is to just listen more and speak less. And that's the big focus for us to be a strong ally, and understand that the biggest thing that it's not about you, right? It's about them. So you don't want to stand in front of them. You want to be on the side or behind. So you're backing them up, and it's blessing. I would say this is the time to educate ourselves of our privilege and how we can utilize that privilege to help others and lift everyone else up.
Thank you. That's so beautiful. And yeah, if I can add, Leela Watson, who's an Indigenous visual artist and activist, puts it really well. She says, if you have come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let's work together. And so you have all exemplified that and more in today's panel. I've really appreciated. I want to have way more conversations with you for way more time. But unfortunately, we are out of time. And I want to thank all of you for being here with us. Bria, Wade, Mohammed, thank you for your leadership when it comes to these issues in all of your different industries, and for showing up this morning with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Liz. Thank you, Girl Up.
Yes, Girl Up. Thank you for having these conversations and brightening up our day.
About 3 years ago, I found that I can harness my power within the club and educate girls in my own communities as well as around the world.
Absolutely. It really reminds me how closely related activism is to storytelling and sharing the stories of not only the leaders of movements, but ourselves and how we are contributing to the movements that we are supporting. Exactly. That brings us to our next panel, Telling Her Story, to talk to us about the importance of telling the stories of women and communities of colour, with Girl Up Teen Advisor Salo and the Telling Her Story panel.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. We have the extraordinary honor to be joined today by three absolutely incredible women. Dr. Nina Ansari, author and UN Women Global Champion for Innovation, Dr. Mireya Loza, assistant professor at NYU, and Christine Platt, author and also managing director at American University Anti-Racism Center. I am Salome Wedget. I am one of this year's Teen Advisor co-chairs, and I am beyond honored to be here today. Welcome, everybody. I just want to start with a question for you, Nina. Nina, you wrote Anonymous is a Woman, a global chronicle of gender inequality to amplify the voices of women throughout history. What did you learn about the erasure of women's voices writing this?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be part of such an amazing panel and to be part of this extraordinary summit of so many inspirational leaders and lovely young ladies such as yourself. What I learned was that really women occupy 0.5% of recorded history, and that is not only a historical inaccuracy, but the repercussions of holding back so many significant contributions that have been made by women for centuries, even during times when women didn't have the kind of opportunities available today. They were able to make invaluable contributions, and the repercussions of that leads to stereotypical. The more we make the invisible visible, that has ripple effects in various forms. One is you're able to shatter stereotypical assumptions, typically in the male-dominated fields, that women are less capable. You're also able to give and provide role models for countless young women, because so many studies and research prove that exposure to female role models who have excelled in so many different fields despite the obstacles, specifically during times when women were barred from the educational field, from participating in numerous other fields, it has the potential to reap tremendous rewards and benefits.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that answer. The next question goes to Christine. Christine, you have written many children's books centered around African American stories and voices, especially in this day and age. Why do you think children should be exposed to these stories from such an early age?
So many reasons. I recently read an essay by Walter Dean Myers, and it just so beautifully explained the importance and significance of stories and using stories as a way to highlight Black narratives that are traditionally underrepresented in literature. And I actually have a note here because I really wanted to make sure that I have his quote accurate. And what he said was, and the name of this essay, by the way, is Where Are the People of Color in Children's Books? Meyer noted that he wrote for Black children to make them human in the eyes of readers, and especially in their own eyes, to make them feel as if they are part of America's dream and that they are wanted in this country. And I remember reading that and literally having tears in my eyes. It's so adequately captures why I write for children and why I think it's so important to tell these narratives. And again, thinking of the work of Rudine Sims Bishop, who wrote about books being used as windows and mirrors, right? And so when I think of these narratives and representation, these books are windows for children to look into the lives of other communities and individuals and narratives that they're curious about, but they're also mirrors for my community. And I think it's so important to share those stories and making sure that these children see themselves represented on the page.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you so much for that answer. I do believe it is essential for children to be exposed to these stories and voices from such an early age. My next question is for Dr. Mireya Loza. Dr. Mireya, I was wondering that you have worked on the Girlhood, It's Complicated exhibition. And what can you tell us about the historical importance of girls' voices?
Well, I actually think that, like books, museums and exhibitions do a similar kind of work. They actually allow us to see ourselves as agents of change, to see ourselves as historical actors. And the reality is that many young girls and young people go into museums every single day, and they see stories of adults making change, making action, when the reality is that young people have been on the front lines of American history for a very long time. And so what we try to do is to make sure that in a moment and in a year where we're all thinking about women's history, that we actually think about girls as agents of change as well, and that we give girls an opportunity to connect to the past in powerful ways, and so that they see that they are not alone in trying to solve the world's problems, because girls for generations have been doing just that, trying to solve issues, trying to make a more equitable space for everyone.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing with the world this exhibition of just highlighting girls' weight on history, because it's often overlooked. This next question goes back to Christine. Christine, I was wondering, what's your story? How and why did you get started in this storytelling work?
Yeah, so my story is I am a first generation college grad. And during my studies, I studied African and African American history and culture, became fascinated by all this bit of history about my community that I had never known. And that's what really drew me to this work, capturing and telling these narratives. And I'm so afraid and so fearful of them being forgotten. That it's really an important part of my work, making sure to capture the narratives of my community, the history, the richness and depth of the history of the African diaspora. And now that work has shifted into introducing these important narratives to young people, and starting with early readers, introducing terms like ancestors and generational history and all of those things, and capturing the minds of young people and their imaginations earlier with telling these narratives. So that's what led me to this work.
Wow, that's so impressive. I would like to extend the same question to Dr. Nina Ansari. What's your story behind how you got involved with this line of work? Wait, I think
doctoral.
There you go. Now we can hear you. Go ahead.
I wrote my doctoral thesis on the history of the women's rights movement in Iran. I was born in pre-revolutionary Iran, and I witnessed Iran radically change overnight with the Islamic Revolution of 1979, and with it, the rights of the women who were revoked. And during the course of my doctoral research, I came across so many exceptional women in Iran who, despite all the gender discriminatory laws, were able to excel in practically every field. And back then, a lot of their stories were not as part of the mainstream narrative, so to speak. And I felt these women were not only inspirational, but they serve as role models for so many young women in oppressive societies that despite all the roadblocks, you can excel, you can achieve. So that's really how my journey started, was with my academic work. And since then, it has extended into the global community, where during the course of my work as a visiting fellow at the London School of Economics, I came across so many women, like the women in Iran, who have excelled despite the obstacles. And I felt their narratives and their stories should be heard, not only because it's important to get their voices out, but also because so many women deserve the recognition that they're not receiving.
Yes, thank you so much, Nina. And as a last question to Mireya, I was wondering, what tips do you have, what advice do you have for girls and young women who want to be storytellers?
I think one of my first tips is to actually really look and interrogate the past. We can say or think that we are the first to do something, and the first. And one of the things that I love about history is that there has been a long chain of powerful girls, African American girls, Latina girls, Native girls, all kinds of girls, Asian American girls, that have really fundamentally shifted American history. And I think one of the things to know is that we are not alone, and we are not the ones that are the first to have these ideas. And so if we look at the past and we really pull these narratives, we can connect more powerfully to these long histories and say things that young men and boys have always been able to say. I have a history and I can see myself. And so I think, these kind of issues matter, representation matters. And when we see little girls in the 1930s making change, when we see little girls in 1890 making change, when we see them during the American Revolution making change, we know we're just one link in that chain. And we can take lessons from them. We can think about how they connected to community, what tools they used, how they organized, how they actually made communities understand their plight. And so I think that a lot of our questions around social justice can be really guided by these young voices of the past.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for joining this panel today. You have inspired me. I know you have inspired many other attendees. It's been an honor to get to interview the three of you. I actually want to be involved in this line of work myself. So I am very much inspired, and thank you all very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that message from our longtime partner, Caterpillar. Be sure to go watch that video again. And thank you so much to our Telling Her Story speakers. That was amazing. In the movement for gender equality plenary so far.
I felt super inspired by the Future is Queer panel. I really appreciate everything they said about transgender people. I have a couple close friends who are transgender, and it's amazing to know everything they said about the transgender people.
Sallow, since we're both feeling so inspired, do you think it's time to share our surprise with them?
Absolutely. We are super happy to share with you that Girl Up has created a workbook for the summit that you can access in my documents section.
It's so cool. Be sure to download it. in each plenary, the MCs will lead you through an interactive activity that can be found in the workbook.
Exactly. Let's talk about the first activity we did, creating an identity wheel.
Yeah. The worksheet first had us identify our identities. It's important to keep in mind that we all have overlapping identities. This wheel is a guide in helping to identify them. Maybe it's race, ethnicity, gender, ability, sexual orientation, citizenship, and, those things that you feel most define what it's like to be you in the world.
The worksheet asks you 4 questions to help you identify your identities. What identities you think about most? What identities you think about least? What identities do you think affect how others perceive you? And what identities do you think affect how you perceive yourself? So let's talk about the reflection questions. Mopi, what identities affect how others perceive you the most?
Definitely my age and gender. These have had a massive impact on the way skills are perceived. As a STEM advocate, I am particularly obsessed with all things technology. There have been instances where my abilities are overlooked, and not many people believe that I have the skills, like being able to code, because I'm young and a woman taking an interest in what has wrongly been depicted as a man's job. My education gives me power, and having this knowledge is super important, as it is helping build the foundations of my future. Girls can code, we can be tech savvy and intelligent. Salo, what identity affects how you perceive yourself?
Well, before that, Mopi, I'm so happy to hear your story, and I totally understand that, and it's awful. So the one thing that I think impacts the way anxiety. I have been struggling with it for a couple of years, and it definitely has a negative impact on the way I see myself. It makes me feel like less than I actually am, and that kind of stuff. But I've been learning a lot of strategies on how to ignore these thoughts and how to actually see myself for who I really am.
And just so you know, Salo, you are amazing. When I did this activity, it was a good reminder to me that all of our overlapping identities are socially constructed. Both the privileges and injustices that we each face have a very real and concrete impact.
For me, it was also a reminder to reflect and recognize our identities and the ways they may challenge us, the way they provide privileges for us as leaders.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Salo. Thank you everyone for completing this leadership activity with us. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Trent and Tanisha for the Girls with Dreams Become a Women with Vision fireside chat.
I can't hear Tanusha. I can't hear Tanusha. Can you hear her? No, I can't hear you. Somehow I think you're muted. No. No.
Hi, everyone. It is truly an honor to be with you for this year's Global Leadership Summit. My first summit was in 2015, and I was blown away by your passion, dedication, and commitment to creating a gender-equal world. I've been a big Girl Up fan ever since. You know, P&G's partnership with Girl Up just makes sense, and it's been a real joy watching it grow over the years. As Carolyn mentioned earlier, P&G's brands, including Always, Whisper, and Secret, have supported women and girls for many years and have an unwavering commitment to gender equality. For example, the Always brand is raising awareness about the lack of access to period products, which causes girls to miss school and has implications far beyond puberty. Always launched the End Period Poverty campaign to raise awareness of this issue and encourage people around the world to take action. And they have. Since starting in the UK, Always has expanded the campaign to 10 countries and donated more than 50 million period products around the world. The Secret brand knows that there are many things that make women sweat, but equality should never be one of them. The brand is using its voice to fight for equal pay and equal representation for all women. Secret was the first official sponsor to publicly support the U.S. women's national soccer team's fight for equal pay. But as I reflect on where we are on our journey towards gender equality, I cannot ignore the fact that we are now in the midst of a dual public health crisis of COVID-19 and systemic racism. COVID-19 has disproportionately impacted Black Americans with a higher mortality rate. The brutality of systemic racism has been caught on cell phones, and Black Americans continue to be killed unjustly. Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Rayshard Brooks. You've heard these names and many, many more. These injustices could no longer be ignored or set aside as people flooded the streets in hundreds of cities around the world with their frustration, pain, grief, and anguish. People everywhere experience a collective awakening because this time the truth is inescapable. Racism is not new. It has plagued America since its founding, and it exists everywhere. I was born in the South where my dad was a small businessman, and my mom worked at a manufacturing plant where white supervisors manage a primarily Black workforce. Racism is so much a part of my life in America. It took this moment for me to fully appreciate how pervasive it really is and how pervasive it was in my own childhood. So what does this mean for me now as an advocate, a woman of color, and a PNGer? As an advocate, I'm ready. I've always been an advocate. As a child, I negotiated with my parents so much that my father once remarked that anyone who liked to argue as much as I did should get paid for it. So I became a lawyer. After several years in P&G's legal department, I had the privilege of moving to Washington, D.C. to join the government affairs team, where I now advocate for issues like U.S. global leadership, access to clean drinking water around the world, gender equality, and women's economic empowerment. I am now leveraging my advocacy skills with a greater sense of purpose and clarity to accelerate racial and gender equality, not only at P&G, but at every opportunity I get in every environment I'm in. As a woman of color, I'm ready. For many years of my life, I fixated on what I was told were my weaknesses or opportunity areas. I spent hours focused on what I didn't do well under the guise of self-improvement. In hindsight, what I was really doing was shaping myself in the image of others, minimizing my gifts and aspects of my personality that make me unique and different. What I know now is that my gifts will make room for me, that when I let my gifts shine, I am prepared to meet any moment, that I am more than enough just as I am. While I would say those words before, I now really believe them and feel compelled to share my gifts with others. As a P&Ger, guess what? I'm ready. I'm ready to help P&G accelerate its efforts on racial and gender equality. I am fortunate that I don't have to choose between my purpose and my career. I work for a company that sees this moment the same as I do, as an opportunity to step up with our brands and as a company to advance equality for all people, and especially right now for Black Americans who face racism, bias, and brutality. How are we doing that? Well, for years we've used our voice as a leading advertiser to highlight racial bias and spark dialogue. We released a short film called The Talk, which shines the light on the conversations that Black parents have had with their children to prepare them for what they will inevitably face in America. Our film, The Look, shines a light on the bias and racism that Black men face every day. But recognizing that systemic racism and inequality will only be solved unless the white community steps up to help, a few weeks ago, we released a film called The Choice. This film helps encourage those in the white community to step up and get started with actions like read, watch and listen, vote, and engage. We also established a Take on Race Fund with an initial contribution of $5 million to accelerate and expand our work alongside organizations that fight for justice and advance economic equality and education in our communities. So I'm ready to seize this moment and do all I can as an advocate, woman of color, and a PNGer. But as a change maker on the front lines in your communities, you know this is exhausting work. You've also experienced being overwhelmed, helpless, and just flat out tired by it all. So I wanted to leave you with a few suggestions for your consideration. Take time to reflect on this moment. Whenever I get overwhelmed, I get quiet. Not the type of quiet where I stop talking. The time to find and sit still with my thoughts and feelings without judgment. Take time for yourself to refuel your tank and stay focused on your goals. Know your gifts, embrace them, celebrate them, and use them to continue to be a force for good. I promise your gifts will make room for you. What you're doing is not easy, and your resilience is impressive. You are inspiring to me and others around you, and I'm simply in awe. I want to end by saying thank you. Thanks to each and every one of you for caring, for taking action, and for marshaling your energy to make the changes you want to see in the world. You are making a difference, and for that, I thank you.
Okay, they're on.
A huge thanks to Tara Hogan-Charles, Senior Director and PNG Governor Affairs. I really related to what you said about the mission of We See Equal. Speaking of equality and leadership,
I am so excited to introduce you to the incredible sister duo, Chloe and Halle. Chloe and Halle are actresses, singers, artists, and true girl heroes. Help me welcome Chloe and Halle.
Hi, my name is Connie Lim, and I perform under the artist.
We are so honored to speak to you today about the power girls have to affect positive change in the world. We are so proud of this generation of girls who aren't just leading the future, but are affecting real change right now. And it all starts with belief. Belief to realize you have the power within yourselves.
As Girl Up leaders, you believe that you have the power to change the world, to make it a better place for everyone. You're out there doing it. From protecting refugee girls' access to education, all the way to advocating for new laws and bills to be passed into U.S. law. It is our generation that is rising up to meet and solve the problems facing our world.
Personally, we are really trying to do everything we can through music and using art to make this world a better place. It takes hard work to really be the change that you want to see. And of course, being in a male-dominated industry, we feel it's important as two young Black women to take control of our creativity. I mean, from the lyrics to the melodies to the production, it is our story to tell. We have the power, and you have the power as well.
From tackling global crises and fighting for change to organizing within your own local communities. And it didn't start today. Over the past decade, the Girl Up movement has trained 65,000 young leaders throughout a network of 3,500 clubs and 120 countries. I mean, that is just incredible.
Wow. From us to you, we are so, so proud. Keep up the great work. There's only a better tomorrow if we fight for it.
Remember, you're never too young to make a difference, and you're never too old to start.
Thank you so much, Chloe and Halle. I am so excited to introduce our next fireside chat. This is not a man's world.
I can't wait to watch three of my girl heroes speak on one of the issues I care about the most.
Me too. Please help us welcome Executive Director of Girl Up, Melissa Kilby, and Girl Up Teen Advisors alum, Laura Julia and Aya.
Yay!
Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Julia. I'm a 16-year-old youth advocate and intersectional feminist from Washington, D.C. I've been involved with Girl Up since 2017. I was a part of the 2019 to 2020 Teen Advisor class, and I am now the co-chair, or one of the co-chairs, for the 2020 to 2021 class. I'm so excited to be with Aya and Melissa today.
Hi everyone, my name is Aya Laga and I am 18 years old from Salamia, Syria. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I joined Girl Up as a teen advisor in the class of 2019-2020, and then I became the founder and president of Girl Up RIS and the co-founder of Girl Up Syria, and I'm also an active member of Girl Up Arab World Coalition. I am thrilled to be moderating this panel. This is Not a Man's World, along with my fellow teen advisor, Laura Julia, and I'm very excited to be a part of the 2020 Global Leadership Summit.
We are so excited to introduce you to Melissa, who is the fearless leader as well as executive director of Girl Up. Melissa is an amazing role model who I fortunately have had the opportunity to know for the past few years. I actually met Melissa with my dad at a restaurant when I was in 7th grade, and she inspired me to become a part of Girl Up and to get as involved as I have. I'm so inspired by Melissa, and basically after every time we talk, I leave so obsessed with Girl Up and I do all this research. It's fabulous. So we're so lucky today because she's going to be sharing her wisdom and her experiences with us.
Thank you guys so much for joining me. I can't wait to get started.
So I think we'll get right into questions.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. In this panel, we will be examining what it means to be a female leader in this space. And because we know that self-reflection is critical for leadership development, we have come here today with some questions that you asked on how to become better leaders. So the first question we have says that this year, Girl Up is celebrating 10 years. What are you proud of in the first 10 years, and what are your goals for the next 10 years of Girl Up?
Thanks so much for the question. I mean, 10 years is it's such an incredible milestone. And I think that this event in and of itself is just such a testament to how much we've grown in 10 years. So I'm obviously proud of that. But first and foremost, I've had this incredible front row seat to see from our Girl Up leaders over the last decade, what they have done with this work, starting nonprofits, making their universities safer, introducing bias-free hiring policies at their work, inventing things. It's really been just so incredible. And plus, you've all been just inspiring each other along the way. I'm also really proud of the evolution of Girl Up. We're not the same initiative that started 10 years ago. We started as a fundraising campaign, then we took on advocacy, and now Girl Up really is truly about being activists, being active activists in the fight for gender equality. The world has changed a lot in 10 years, and so have teen girls, but so has Girl Up, and that's something I'm really proud of. My goals for the next 10 years, I think, is just to really build on this global movement and to ensure that every club in every corner of the world can have the same experience, can be a part of this movement, and can make real change in their communities. I have a 3.5-year-old daughter, and my real goal is that we've actually moved the needle on gender equality and that she is not having this exact same conversation 10 years from now. That's my goal.
Yeah, it's so amazing to see how much Girl Up has grown in these past few years. The fact that there's 30,000 people who are attending the summit is just so incredible. Our next question is, what drives your passion for Girl Up, and how do you define a leader?
I so believe that no girl should be told that she can't make a difference or that she doesn't matter just because she's a girl. I remember feeling this inherently when I was young. Being loud, speaking over the boys in class didn't really buy me any popularity, but I knew my intelligence, I had a lot of confidence, and I really sat with that. I wish that was celebrated more, right? And I've also seen that as a professional, getting talked over or mansplained to, even when you are the leader of a global movement, it's just not something that I'm okay with. And, I just want to make sure that all the girls that I see around the world and all of their potential, that they never feel like, they shouldn't be listened to or they shouldn't be prioritized because they're a girl. That's really what my job is all about. And that's really where my passion comes from. And a leader to me is someone who can grow and evolve. Knowing when you have to adapt, not just yourself, but your organization, that's really important. And our evolution, like I mentioned, is something that I'm really proud of. And we're going through actually evolution right now. We're in the middle of COVID-19, and we are also, battling this brutality of systemic racism that's affecting our Girl Up Club's members around the world. And so we have to evolve, whether it's exploring new ways to connect virtually like this amazing summit, or looking at ways to accelerate our own work for racial justice within Girl Up. I know the importance of continuing to lead an organization to make sure that we are reaching every girl and that we can support all of our members. And we have to evolve to do that. So I think that's a really, really important aspect of leadership. Personally, I aspire to be a leader that listens, that can reflect and learn, and really lean into that evolution. I want to make sure that I can inspire with my humanity, being vulnerable, being my authentic self. My advice to you is, as a leader, always be human in your leadership and really try to be yourself.
Thank you so much for that.
You are absolutely right. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. Our next question is from Salome from Girl Up TCS, and her question says, how can we dispel the women versus women complex, and how can we encourage sisterhood?
Yeah, I love this question because that's really what this community is all about, right? I think that when we are generous with each other as women, our collective light as women shine brighter. We are arguing with men to let us have a seat at the table, that when you have both men and women at the table, everyone benefits. And I think the same is true, is the more women at the table, the better, right? This isn't a zero-sum game. And I think when it comes down to it, we're all passionate. We may not always agree. Sometimes there might be hurt, but anytime that I've worked in partnership, or when I've used my platform to amplify another woman, I've really been better for it. And I really just think that when you use your light to shine on someone else's, it doesn't diminish yours, but it makes us all brighter. I think this summit is a really great example of that.
I've always loved how Girl Up really girls, whether it be in our own communities or globally, and that's been one of my favorite things of being a part of Girl Up. Our next question is from Ariana from Alpharetta Girl Up, and she says, as a leader, was there a time when you realized you needed to change your approach to leading a group? If so, what advice would you give to Girl Up leaders and leaders in general about finding the best ratio of relatability as well as authority?
Yeah, no, I think this is such a great question. The first thing that comes to mind is when I first started leading teams, I was really task oriented. I'm a doer. I really like to get stuff done. And as an early manager, I focused really too much on executing to get to the goal and not enough on the team, on what they needed from me. Once I realized that the team was actually the most important part of accomplishing any goal, I transitioned from being a task manager to a people champion, to a coach, to a mentor. And truly the success and I think my own leadership just really transformed from there. People are really the most important part, and our team truly is the most important part. When I embraced that, it changed everything. The other thing that I realized recently, as I transitioned back to being a solo executive director, as my partner Anna moved into a new role, is that I really needed to be more vulnerable, to let my team see that I was a little bit overwhelmed, and to ask for grace and patience. Instead of doubting me, they rallied to support me. And every time, every moment that I show my true human self, that has strengthened my leadership. So don't be afraid to be human. I think that's really important.
That's definitely such good advice that I can definitely relate to in my club. definitely like I feel sometimes overwhelmed, and I've had to work on talking to my club members and just letting them know that I might need a little extra assistance planning meetings or things like that.
Our last question. Yeah, our last question for this panel is from Rima from Taylor Academy, and she asks, what were some obstacles that you had to face to achieve your success, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, I can think of two obstacles, age and self-doubt. You know, I stepped into this role with Girl Up pretty young, and I had to really work hard to be trusted, to build confidence. But I never backed down and I never gave up, especially in the moments of, I think, the greatest challenge. And I remember being applauded actually by UN Foundation's CEO at the time, Kathy Calvin. And she said, you know, you really are persistent. And I said, yeah, I'm going to lean into that. And I think sheer persistence has been something that I've taken with me, you know, through that obstacle. The other real thing that I've faced is my own self-confidence as a leader. I share this often, but, you know, imposter syndrome almost got the best of me. It's really hard to inspire others when you are doubting yourself and unsure of yourself, if you're not feeling worthy or deserving of the role. But that feeling was really the most significant barrier standing in my way. Once I actually saw myself as a leader, I never looked back. I just kept leading. And I see that in all of you. You know, once we see ourselves as the leaders that we are, no one can ever take that away from us.
Thank you so much, Melissa.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you so much for your leadership.
Aya, do you have any parting words? Oh, I think you're on mute, Aya. Well, thank you so much, Melissa, for sharing your wisdom with us. We love talking with you, and I'm sure that the girls and their club will be able to learn so much and grow so much from the words you shared with us today.
Thank you both so much. Have a great summit, everybody.
Thank you, Melissa, Laura, Julia, and Aya. What powerful advice for Girl Up Club leaders.
Now, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Trent and Tanusha for the Girls with Dreams Become Women with Vision Fireside Chat.
Okay. Hey everyone, welcome to this fireside chat on how girls with dreams become women with vision. My name is Tanusha Ramadas. I'm the founder of APL Girl Up, which is a club situated in Chennai, India, and a former TA who was part of the 2019-2020 class. With me here today, we have the incredible Dr. Terry Trent. Dr. Trent is a scholar, humanitarian, educator, a motivational speaker, mentor, and the founder of Terry Trent International. We are so glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. I'm just so thrilled to be with you today.
So before we begin, I just want to say that you're one of my role models. Like ever since I read the segment about you on Half the Sky, you've been such a huge inspiration to me.
Thank you. I also get inspired by young women like you. That's where I get my energy and my creativity. Your passion and commitment to gender equality and to anti-racism is what's going to heal this world. And I truly believe that, Girl Up, you have it. And I think the world is going to change as we see it.
So without further ado, I would like to ask you my first question. So what was your experience of the world when you were 14? Like, what was the impact of colonialism, the resulting poverty, and the lack of education on the choices you made and the women in your family?
Gosh, let me go back to 14. What did I knew when I was 14? You know, I come from this long line of generations of women who had been denied their education, denied their dreams because of their gender. And I always talk about visualizing my great grandmother being denied her right to dream, to be a woman, to be an empowered woman. And I always think of her running into this race, and I'm going to call that the race of poverty. But she is holding on to something that I call the baton. And this is the baton of gender inequality, the baton of illiteracy, the baton of early marriage. And she's running with this baton, and she hands it over to my grandmother, and my grandmother hands it over to my mother, and my mother hands it over to me. But I also reached a point in my life when I realized by the time I was 18, as I was running into this race, I was already a mother of 4 babies, and one of the kids died as an infant because I failed to produce enough milk. I was a child myself. So there was this baton of oppression, the baton of a systemic racism that really in many ways shaped the way women were treated, because colonial system came into play in a society that was already marginalizing or not even seeing the value of women. So we were sitting on a bomb to think that women now, we have this colonial system, and now we have this patriarchal system, and we become the victims. But I never wanted to be a victim, despite the fact that I had these kids, you know, at 18 without a high school education, without nothing. But all I knew, I wanted an education.
That I have for you is that after you had completed your studies in the United States and then visited Zimbabwe, were there any visible changes in your village? Like, did you achieving success change the outlook of your community to a certain degree? Can you tell us more about that?
So when I realized I didn't want to run into this race of poverty, this race of illiteracy, I decided to write down my dreams. And I wrote down my 4 dreams. I wanted to go to America to have an undergraduate, a master's degree, and a PhD. And my mother looked at that small paper and she said, remember, your dreams will have greater meaning when they are tied to the betterment of your community. So I ended up writing my number 5 dream, that when I am done, I want to come back and give back to my own community. So after I was done with my education in the US, I was at a time when I didn't even realize, well, you know, how am I going to give back to my community? And that's when I was very fortunate to receive $1.5 million from Oprah Winfrey. And today we have managed to rebuild 12 schools and 38,000 kids have gone through our education system. And remember, I'm coming from a very poor rural community where kids could not go to school because of poverty. And many of our school structures were just dilapidated. So I had to go in and rebuild. And none of these kids that are now into our school systems, their parents never went to university, attended college. Their grandparents never did that. So these are the first generations that are now breaking that cycle, that baton of illiteracy, the baton of early marriage. And we have now many girls that are now attending universities as I speak.
Oh, that's amazing. Honestly, like, wow, that's great. And so in your road to success, there were many instances where you probably would have felt just like giving up. And that's something that a lot of us feel. So how were you able to keep persisting? And what was your motivation? Like, what would your advice be for all of us who are listening to you right now and to mainly just overcome this roadblock?
I always say to women and girls out there that surround yourself with those who believe in your dreams. Surround yourself with someone who can look right into your eyes and never saw how poor you are, but they see the giant, the champion in you. And also, I think it's important that as women and as young women and girls, to come home to ourselves, to show we are vulnerable, we are human beings, rather than showing, yeah, we can do all this. We need help. We are social animals. We need others to come into our life and help us so we can achieve our dreams.
Great advice. That's definitely something that I'm going to take back. And I know a lot of us will definitely do that as well. So, how did you dream beyond what you saw? Like, with this transitional period in our history, like, what can the role of dreaming really do? And what can the role of dreaming beyond what we see play out for a lot of us?
There are so many challenges in our lives, and sometimes we become so inundated with some of the issues in our lives. But I always say to myself, when I see oppression, when I see systemic racism, when I see the oppression of women, I know this is what is silencing me. This is what is silencing many women. So I am asking, do I want to remain silenced? And that alone gives me that attitude that I don't need to be silenced. I need to reclaim my voice and I need to be part of the solution. Otherwise, we become victims and we allow ourselves to be victims. And I always say to young women out there, never let victimhood define you. You are part of the solution, and always think of yourself as the dreamer, the master and mistress of your own destiny, and be able to know that when you rise, you are also enabling others to rise as well, because we are here for a purpose, obvious, and we need to make sure that when we leave this earth, we leave it a better place than we found it when we were born.
That's great advice. And that's definitely something that I know I, for one, will definitely take back. And I know the girls who are listening right now will definitely take this advice back. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming and inspiring all of us with your words of wisdom. Like, honestly, there's so much for us to think about now that once we're done with this summit. And honestly, thank you so much for contributing and for helping a lot of us out there in the world, and for definitely inspiring a lot of the girls and the women out there. Thank you so much.
And thank you for having me. And always remember the power of giving back to our communities as women, because women, we have the power to heal this world.
Yes, thank you so much.
What a powerful reminder to chase our dreams with resilience and to surround ourselves with those who inspire us. Tanusha and Dr. Trent both inspire me. All of the speakers so far today, what a powerful plenary this has been.
Girl Up movers, shakers, and changemakers, please welcome Mel.
My name is Connie Lim, and I perform under the artist name Milk, M-I-L-C-K. I believe that the more that we have organizations like Girl Up doing the work and collaborating with communities all over the world to help amplify that feminine divine, the more that we're going to see meaningful and long-term healing in all other movements that are currently bubbling to the surface. This song is called Somebody's Beloved. I co-wrote this with an incredible artist named Bipolar Sunshine. And this is our song of just taking a moment to honor the lives that we have unfortunately lost to systemic racism. And thank you for listening.
She was somebody's daughter, somebody's friend, Someone who built her dreams with every breath, whom others could depend. More than a number, more than a story, more than a memory. Somebody's friend, somebody's daughter, somebody's beloved. Blood on leaves falling like autumn. Her story's been told 1,000 times. Why doesn't everybody scream for anyone listening? Say her name. Say her name. He was somebody's father, somebody's son, someone who dreamt of seeing his daughter grow taller and fall in love. More than a number, more than a story, more than a memory. Somebody's son, somebody's father, somebody's beloved. Blood on leaves falling like autumn. His story's been told 1,000 times. Why doesn't everybody scream for anyone listening? Say his name. Say his name. More than just a number. Say their name. More than just a story. Say their name. More than a memory. Say their name. Say their name. Say their name. They were somebody's first call, somebody's home, someone who lived with tears and laughter, who wanted to belong. More than a number, more than a story, more than a memory. Somebody's home, somebody's first call, somebody's beloved. Somebody's first call, somebody's beloved.
Thank you so much for listening. My name is Milk, and thank you, Girl Up, for having me. And let's continue to rise and speak up and share our perspectives to help further all the movements that need to be rising at this time. Much love and peace.
Thank you so much, Milk, for that powerful and moving performance. We must continue to remember the lives and the stories of those known and unknown who have passed away as a result of systemic oppression. We must say their names. We are now at the end of our Movement for Gender Equality plenary.
But the inspiration does not have to stop here. In the main stage, you can still watch a variety of on-demand videos to learn more about the movement for gender equality.
And don't forget to tune back into our next plenary, Building the Future, beginning at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Are you looking for the summit schedule? Check it out in the agenda and speaker section in the lobby.
Thank you all so much for an incredible day, and we hope to see you tomorrow.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.